Hello and welcome to the Free Cheese, episode 372. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Selner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. Matt, we saw the PlayStation 5 UI for the first time this week. We saw not a lot else because it was a really slow news week, but we're going to have a show anyway because we played some video games that we're excited to talk about. But first, how are you doing?
I am doing all right. I wish I would have saved what we just talked about for on air because I really just pissed you off.
No, it's good. We don't have to talk about that ever again.
Yeah, regarding Bly Manor and how it got better. I'll say that.
Just if you're a listener listening to these words and you're sitting at home like, oh yeah, that follow-up to Hill House is out on Netflix. I should waste a Saturday watching it. Just don't. Just go eat fried chicken. Like, do the first part of the day that I had, not the second part. You know, like, the first part was rad. The rest of it, not so rad. Don't watch that show. Just don't watch it.
Just watch What We Do in the Shadows. That's what me and Victoria have also been doing.
That's a much better television show.
Had a lot of fun. We got 5 episodes left before we're all caught up.
And you can rewatch the whole thing all over again.
The superb owl party. I was dying. When they were talking about the owl and that they could touch the beak, and Laszlo's like, it depends on his mood.
I love Laszlo more than most things. Matt Berry is a treasure. It's been a week, man. So
yeah, I've been a busy bee. I just get home and I'm just tired.
I didn't play anything until Thursday. That's not true. The beginning of the week, I did, but then I took a couple days and then fell back into.
I played some stuff like the Saturday night we recorded. Yeah, and I didn't play anything until Thursday.
Yeah,
I mean, I watched some TV and stuff like that, but I never really sat down with anything.
Well, more on that later. We are going to start by finishing.
Oh.
I know. The quarterfinals of our ongoing segment. Who would win in a fight? Matt, it comes down to just 2 contenders left in the quarterfinals here. And then, you know what happens after that?
The thing called the semifinals.
The finals. But before that, you're absolutely right. The semifinals. Matt, I want to know, of our remaining 2 contenders, who would win in a fight? Pyramid Head or Gigas? For listeners just joining us while Matt ponders the question, we're wondering, out of video games' greatest villains, who would win in a fight? We have Pyramid Head from the Silent Hill series, and we have Gigas. I never get it right.
Yeah, I was about to ask you if that's how you say it, but all right, great.
I bet you like 6 weeks ago when we first did him versus Kefka, I said something different. So I'm going to go with Gigas because I can hear Ben's voice in my head correcting someone saying H.R. Giger. So let's go with Geiger.
Geiger. All right, Geiger.
Gigas.
Yeah.
You know what would probably make sense if we looked it up in Japanese?
Probably.
Anyway, that's a different time. What are we
That's another fight.
Yeah,
that's another tournament, another fight, and man, this is an interesting matchup because like Gaius isn't really like he is a physical thing, but he's not at the same time, right? And then you got Pyramid Head, which is also a physical thing, but also like isn't in a way in the Silent Hill franchise. I don't know. I think it's just one of those like who has like this more like who can branch out more and control more things here. It is a very tough matchup. I'm just trying to think of all the possibilities here. The thing with Pyramid Head, I think he strikes the most only in Silent Hill, right? He has to have the aura of that town. Gygas took over all of, I forgot the name of the lands now in Earthbound, but...
Well, and Gygas also becomes like a pure representation of fear and trauma that lives inside of your psyche. Like, he's the greatest villain inside of yourself, right?
Yeah.
He's
like he goes above just being a person.
yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make though is like he doesn't do it in one specific town or in a spacecraft where you end up going in Earthbound. Like he is everywhere. He is the threat everywhere. Him and his I guess he makes of his little army. I guess I don't know. But he didn't try to stab you as a child, unlike Frank. It wasn't Frank, that asshole in the arcade.
That's true. Yeah, Frank.
Yeah. Frank with a knife, ready to go, stab Ness in like the first 15 minutes of that game if you walk in the right direction. Yeah, I think just because of the threats of Pyramid Head only being in one location, Gygas. I think Gygas is going to be our winner.
I'm down with it.
Gygas is going to be an interesting. These are all going to because I'm kind of sorting out when there's only 4 left. It's getting kind of easy to remember who's won. There's going to be Gygas is going to be a tough takedown, I think.
Yeah,
but at the same time, a group of talented kids did
well. Remember exactly what killed Gygas, and that's the thing. I think that I don't know that the other 3 quarterfinalists or now semifinalists can do, but like it was the power of prayer that took him down. So can one of these others overcome that and find within themselves something they need to overcome the true terror of? You know what? Let's just do this here. I got it highlighted. We're gonna Geeg. So it's probably Gigas.
All right.
There it is.
Listeners, write in on how you pronounce Gigas.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Should I recap who is left in the semifinals here?
Yes. Yeah.
We've got, in no particular order, Gigas, Albert Wesker, Sephiroth, and Ganon. We've got quite a matchup heading up for who would win in a fight. Long gone are the days of your silly Dr. Robotniks and Bowsers and
the New York Yankees.
The New York Yankees, although they did make they made it to the second round, so there's something to be.
I think they just had a good matchup. I forget their first round matchup, but I think it was.
I think their first one was GLaDOS.
Yeah, so. It was a good matchup.
Speaking of good matchups, Matt, you matched up with Mafia Definitive Edition this week.
Yes,
and you wrapped it up.
I did indeed wrap it up. Just literally minutes before recording this. Yeah, I don't have much more to say without kind of getting into spoiler territory about the story and things like that. I've talked about his gameplay and how that goes, but I just briefly, if you cared about, if you're interested about the pace of the story because of the way this game plays, you get the sense that it was a tiny bit rushed maybe towards the end to wrap up that core game back in the day. I feel like it could have used 1, maybe 2 short little mission chapters, just to flesh out like a character motive or something like that. Like you got everything they ended up doing pays off. It's just like you could have maybe put something in there. But at the same, you kind of argue with yourself, right? Because you don't want that dumb mission that doesn't feel unique for the first time. You don't want that mission that feels like they're just padding on hours to the game. So I guess depending on how you want to look at that, but I just feel like some character motives just kind of hit, and there were hints, and there's definitely things that characters did that make sense, but you could have maybe built it up just a tiny bit more. And then with that being said, I think it's important to know, now that I've completed, if you are getting this game and you're someone like me that thought it was open world, like I said, I ended up enjoying it, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into. It took me less than 10 hours to complete the main campaign of this game. Of course, you can free ride and maybe take a little bit more time to find all the magazines and stuff in the story and revisit some of that stuff, but I don't know there's a reason to revisit it besides collecting those things. There are some cool things in the settings you could turn on, and this was stuff at the very beginning. Like, you can turn on, like, police, like, so, like the GTA thing of, like, you run a red light right in front of a police officer, but the police officer doesn't chase you because of, just the way it's programmed, or you didn't hit a car or whatever. In this game, they give you that option of, like, doing realistic simulation driving. So that will maybe be a thing worth going, is to play it on a little bit harder difficulty with that turned on to see how you can manipulate traffic in some of those driving segments. But other than that, I this is kind of like a one and done kind of thing. There's not much reason to go back. So just know what you're getting yourself into. It is not a $60 game. It was only $40, but definitely, like, don't make it wasn't a mistake, but just, come in with the right expectations, so that way you're not disappointed.
Do you feel like it stuck true to the, like, Ray Liotta gangster?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like, in a satisfying way that, like, if you are someone who wanted one of those movies as a video game, this paid off?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep. I mean, they definitely came out at different times, but it's one of those things where you can kind of compare this directly to the Godfather game. And the Godfather game, that is your open world answer. And now I don't know how Mafia 2 is. I think Mafia 2 is the one that finally goes open world. But, like, remembering, like, how the Godfather played and compared to what I just played here, granted being remastered, like, I think I would rather have a Godfather remake now.
I wonder if you'll get one. I mean, licensing is probably going to be a little more difficult on that, but
yeah. But that was more because, like, you had the racket stuff in there, like you could charge, like, you had the families all competing for territory, and then, like, the side stuff was, like, you taking out those territories all the way up to, like, you raiding and assaulting their hideout, mansion, whatever, along with all the storyline beats and things like that. So there was some interesting ideas. Now, granted, like, I think that came after this game, and maybe even after Mafia 2. I don't know the timing of all those releases, so they may have the advantage of seeing some stuff, but
and learning from that. Yeah.
So,
do you feel like it still played well in 2020? Like, did they do enough to the underlying gameplay that made it feel modern, or do you feel like you were playing a pretty version of a PS2 game?
No, it definitely felt like something that came out in 2020. Besides some of the things that you just, like, I can't really point at something, but you can tell that this was a remake of a game at some points. But the way it played, like, mechanically, felt modern. Like, I highly doubt there was a cover based system like a GTA 5 one in the original game, and that was in here very much. So, it definitely, there wasn't really anything that felt like, oh man, they didn't get to this part.
Okay. Well, not bad. So pick it up on a sale, maybe, if you're looking for a good...
Yeah, let's see what who knows what a Black Friday deal looks like this year, but, look out for some sales maybe coming down the pipeline, and definitely, I think, worth a see-through if you're at all interested. Just know it's not open world.
Yeah, But that's kind of fun in itself, too, because open world stuff can certainly, like, have its downfall.
No, it was definitely a good surprise for me, and, like, I wouldn't have gotten...
Yeah, but going into it thinking it probably would be, then, that...
Yeah, if it was open world, I would not be playing the thing we're going to talk about later, if this was the 20 to 30 hour game that I thought I was getting myself into.
Right. Well, speaking of 20 to 30 hour games, I finished Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, or I'm finished with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. After 50 hours, I'm at the final boss, but I'm done. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. I went through the story, and I feel like, as I've talked about this game on the podcast, I've been pretty positive about it across the board. Like, I've been forgiving of some of its faults. The combat stuff that got a little tired, I was forgiving of because the story was working, and I still think the story works through the end. The problem is this game has, like, the same handful of things that they keep relying on. So they keep talking about the sword, the Monado. They keep talking about the 2 giant mech robot things that inhabit the people we're playing as are living on, the Bionis and the Mechanis. But like I started counting at the end because it just seemed like they could not go for more than a sentence without saying Monado, Bionis, Mechanis. And it ended up being about every 5 sentences was the lowest number I could count, where it was just like someone was going to go like, but you have to get back to the Bionis. But the people of Mechanis don't know the true power of the Monado. Witness the true power of the Monado. Unleash the true power of the Monado. If Shulk can look inside himself, he can find the true power of the Monado. By wielding the true power of the true power of the Monado can be the true power of the Monado of the true power of the Monado. It just nonstop with that. And like, it did the thing that I can't stand in games where like you slowly build up all of this power, right? Like that's great. Like you should do that. You should feel like character growth and all of that. And then what felt like just a need to pad out the last chapters or few hours of the game, suddenly the power of the Monado is now gone, and he has to we already did the thing where like the Monado had no power, he gets the power, something happens to like make the power flicker out, and he needs to rebuild it again. You spend the half of the middle of the game doing that, and in the very end, the super bad. And there was a cool twist. I'm not going to say there wasn't a cool twist with like a villain character, but then they did it again with the Monado. The Monado's power flickered out, and now we need to earn it. We don't even have the Monado anymore. It's something else, and now it's just like. That got a little absurd, which is fine. I'm cool.
Death came and stripped your powers one too many times in this game.
A little bit, but then like, instead of like, I don't. It just, it was all generally okay. Like I like weird, dumb anime. Just hey, we're doing this because we wanted. Like there doesn't always. I'm okay when things are a little bit. Without reason, right? Because there's like a certain idea of chaos breeding chaos, and that's fine. But this just hit a point where I was like, okay, I get it. Are we there yet? And then like I did what I thought was the final boss fight, and then no, there's another one, and then no, there's another one. So I was in the final one and working through that, and realized I was a little underleveled. And then I was like, okay, what do I have to do to whatever? And if I were to, there's no, the game was pretty good. If you were under-leveled and died at a boss, you could just kind of turn around and walk down the hallway and go kill some things for a while. So I was fully committed, like, all right, I'll just spend an hour and grind out whatever. But with this one, the way the checkpointing works for those final couple of boss fights, it would have put me before the penultimate boss fight back in this one thing. And I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I know what happens. It's fine. I don't need to see the rest of this. I don't know. It's just like I think that like everything that they did could work well. I just feel like it was relied on too heavily. Like all of the stuff about like learning about the Bionis and the Mechanis, those 2 massive monoliths that you get to see from afar, but also like that's the world that you live on. Seeing that stuff come to life, seeing those things actually come back to life, and begin to fight again, while people are on it trying to live, and like that was all wild. But yeah, I think they relied too heavily on it, and I don't know. I think it's a me problem. Like I think I just time-wise, I hit a wall where I was like, I'm good. I don't want to spend any more time with this.
I mean,
and when I had made that decision, it was difficult to want to keep going. I think that people that are super into this and want to, like, I think that this, I don't think everyone's going to get tired of it. I just think I got tired of it. And then my, like, excitement last week for maybe, like, ooh, let's branch out. Let's look at Xenoblade 2. Let's maybe go back to Xenogears. Like, all of that is completely deflated. And maybe in a year I'll look at Xenoblade 2 again and be like, oh, I should grab that. But right now, boy, I don't want anything to do with any of those.
Yeah, I mean, you did spend 50 hours of the game. Like, I think that's fine. Like, I don't know if you should feel bad for walking away from it at that point.
The funny thing is that, like, if the Switch had achievements or trophies, I bet I would have grinded it out. Which is a shame that, like, a stupid, intangible, dumb percentage would matter.
Oh, I get it, though. I get it.
knowing that I was like, well, wait, what am I doing this for? Like, if the reason is to see the end of the story, I can just go look that up. If the reason is to feel a sense of completion, I'm not going to, because it's just going to be a matter of grinding up to a point where I'm more powerful and then clicking the same series of commands until the other thing is dead. You know what I mean? Like there's no actual skill anymore at this point. I'm just kind of like running through the motions, and that was the challenge kind of lost itself. I felt like through the middle of the game, there were real reasons, like I said, to switch characters, to change party members, to make sure that you were utilizing a combination of skills and techniques, where by the end of it, you kind of just hit... There's a couple of enemies that are like, oh, those things don't work. That combination of things don't fix the problem I have here. But by the final boss, you're kind of back to knowing, okay, well, these things are going to work for me, and I just need to do these and be leveled up enough to make them fall down and die. So I'm good. I think they should put Fiora in Smash. I think that would be fun. But other than that, I'm good.
As long as it's not a Fire Emblem character, I'm for it.
Nah, put more Xenoblade in. That's fine. The Xenoblade characters are cool, and the story was cool overall. But yeah, I still think, though, like anything, like if you think about this, like it's more that the combat is closer to an MMO than something like a traditional JRPG. But if you think about a traditional JRPG, because this does have DNA tracing back to Final Fantasy, those games too, you get to a point where by the end of it, I mean, technically all you're doing is choosing commands from a menu that you've leveled up those attack. You know what I mean? Like it's no different than that in a sense, but I just got tired of doing it. It just kind of outstayed its welcome. But again, I think that's a me thing. I don't think that's indicative of the quality of the game. I think it was a really, really solid game. I just think I got bored of it. You can't eat pizza every day, you know?
I mean, that happens. I wouldn't. Yeah. I want to get mad about it or upset about it.
It does make me wonder, though, because I was thinking about it. The last time I did this was Astral Chain, where I felt by the end of Astral Chain, I had not seen enough variety in what the character skills are or were. And by the final boss, when the game froze and crashed in the middle of the final boss, and I was like so close to finishing it, and I'm good. And I walked away. And I think that was the last time I did it. So that was last year or 2 years ago. What was the last game that you had to walk away from in this regard, where you're like, I know I'm not going to see this to the end? Not like I fell off of it. Oh, yeah, right, I forgot. Like, what is the one where you definitively made a choice like, I'm done?
I can't remember anything like recently, like this year or last year, but I know like my first thought is always Arkham Knight. Like, fuck, getting the perfect ending. And all
really?
those Riddler challenges, nah, fuck that.
I don't know why, but I did that one.
No,
It took me if not 6 months, then a year of playing it on and off, like where I would just, if I were going to sit down and play a game, I would start or end the, hanging out playing a game session by playing Arkham Knight for a little bit. Like, hey, let me go do a couple trophies. Let me go do a couple things. And the more you got, the easier they made it to find more of them. But yeah, it was not an easy one. It was easy enough. It just so much time.
I feel like, I can't think of anything like even. I know there has to be something recently where I was just like, dude, this game sucks, or like not even that, but like, I'm done.
I'm not having fun.
I'm done. It's probably NHL. I don't think I've played it since NHL 19.
Give it time. I don't know. That new one just came out, yesterday?
Yeah. I don't plan on getting it, though. I dropped the simple goal. That's how committed I am to it. I'm a new man. With the power of Game Pass and EA Play, see. I'll play in January.
We'll see. Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. But still, all it takes is one good Capitals win. You'll see.
This is the beautiful thing. The regular season doesn't start this year due to until January due to the season ending so late.
I guess that does help a little bit.
Yeah. So the odds are in my favor.
That works out. Well, the odds happen to be swing over in favor of PlayStation 5 this week. There's a handful of news stories this week from PlayStation 5. There was official confirmation of the stuff we talked about last week with the store, where the developers were emailed the changes to the upcoming store. PlayStation announced that is officially happening on October 21st. Everything will start rolling out. So a couple days from now, a new PlayStation Store experience on the web and mobile. And we got our first look at the PlayStation 5 UI in a video posted to the PlayStation blog. We'll run through the details of this, but what do you think? Yes or no? Were you excited about this?
I mean, I wanted to see it, but it wasn't going to make or break my buy. It could have been the ugliest goddamn thing, and I still...
No. I mean, you already have the purchase. I just mean, are you happy with the changes that are made, generally speaking?
Yeah, there's some good quality of life stuff. I really like I mean, I only had to refer to everything as cards, but, I do like the cards that let you see your trophy progress, and I thought it was cool. And I thought it was cool. All right, you go.
No, I was just saying, look, if you're going to go into that part, let's just do that, and then we'll
what were you talking about? Just aesthetically,
Yeah,
it's
what do
fine.
You think?
It looks like the natural next step from the PS4.
Yeah, at first the opening bit, I thought that they just flip flopped. I thought they just moved that little bar of things to the bottom. I was like, okay, sick, wow, innovative. But then when they actually go through the details, it's like, oh, okay. So they have. The control center is what they're referring to it, where you press the PlayStation button once and you get a quick little pop-up overlay that it looks basically like what you'd expect from the cross-media bar. It shows up at the bottom. You can easily jump to settings, friends lists, etc. And then above that, you have the activities, which are on-screen cards that Matt was referring to that they do a number of things. So some of them show you trophy progress for a trophy you're close to getting. Some of them show you maybe how much time you have left in a current level, right? If the game that they showcased with the UI was Sackboy Big Adventure. So showing that the level he was currently playing through is 30% through. There was about 10 minutes left of the level. You can kind of see that right there, all without leaving the space. You just press the PlayStation button once. They showed how there's also little cards that'll pop up and say, hey, you missed this item. Hey, here's a challenge you might want to jump into. And you can just kind of click the cards and it'll instantly load right to that chunk of the game or whatever. So it seems like a lot of this stuff, and there's a couple other things we'll talk about here in a sec, but I think a lot of this stuff is going to be so reliant on the developers' input, So I expect a lot of this will be there for first party, but third parties is, I think, where it's going to make or break. The other general ones they showed off were friends current activity. So you can kind of quickly see if we're both online, I'm playing something, and I see that Matt has just jumped in to play... they showed Destruction All-Stars, but I'm never going to play that. I don't know. If Matt's playing Bloodborne 2 and I want to jump in and play with him, as long as it's a joinable session, they just showed how quickly that'll pop up and prompt you to do that. They showed that it looks like chat functionality and things like that are going to be more Discord-like, where you're going to have small little kind of groups. And those groups, you can easily jump into voice chat, to text chat. There's just a more community centered around the conversation side of it. And then the other neat thing that popped up with cards were hints for games. So these were tied to PlayStation Plus subscription, but they showed in Sackboy, if you are looking for a thing that you missed and you're not sure where to go next, you can watch a little kind of pre-recorded video from the developer that shows you exactly the path to go to head and complete that challenge. So with that, how do you feel about... You were starting to get into the specifics and I cut you off, but with that, I mean, you said you like the cards in that aspect,
Yeah, I like the idea of the trophy progress stuff, which you already get from Xbox. So it's kind of thank you for catching up. And I like the idea of you being able to jump to a certain part if you are looking. I know the Sackboy, they showed Sackboy collecting those gems, but it jumped him to that level where the gems were, so you can get them or whatever. I like some of that. I do like the whole picture-in-picture thing. I think is really cool. So that way you can, you know, many times where like Platinum Trophy or even like Destiny, like you're trying to go in that little cave, how you have to like pause and play that YouTube thing because you're looking like from your screen to the TV back to your screen. You're like, oh shit, how do you get there? And you're like pausing and going back 10 seconds. And like I feel like the picture-in-picture will help so much with like little things like that. Even like with the hints, or even just like with a friend, like in Destiny's another good example. Like when you have to go in that corner, take a left, go up, and then to the right, and then you find a dumb currency that you'll never use. I just feel like you're following someone, and sometimes you'll lose them, and you don't know how he jumped, but then you can kind of see his screen to see how he pulled off like his triple jump as the Titan to get to the thing. I don't know, like the possibilities unlocked. I think there's cool potential competitive things out of that too. I know for speedrunning, like you might want the whole UI, but that might be a fun little thing to like. If you wanted to test your friend on how fast you can beat a game or something like that. Yeah. Not saying there's many 30-minute Mario games on PlayStation, but still.
And you're referring specifically to the picture, when you said picture-in-picture, like the watching your friend play.
Yeah.
Because you can also like kind of pull up those hints and stuff.
And picture-in-picture,
as picture-in-picture. But yeah, you can watch somebody else play through a game, which is neat. I think too, the hints, like they fix a real problem with exactly what you said, like needing to look something up on YouTube or anywhere else. Like even like reading through a game facts or like anything like that sucks. Like the experience just sucks. Like it's a means to an end because it is, but it's gotten to the point where people behind the creation of those things know that it's a means to an end. So they're just going to bloat it with whatever else. So like sometimes the best resource is IGN wikis, but you open that up and it's littered with ads. And before, like, there have been times where I've been like, I don't want to click on this, but there's nothing else coming up. Fine. What do you got? Click on it. Add. And then it just says like, there's no content for this page. So the like SEO results still populate it because it knows it's a chapter I'm looking for, but there's no content. And it just says like, if you'd like to contribute, sign up for an IGN account. And then I throw my phone at the wall. But then the other side of it is like game facts. You have that. But sometimes, like you said, if it's a very specific like place you have to go, a text description just doesn't always help.
Sometimes like I think I'm gonna get a lot of use out of this early from Demon Souls, because I know if I end up falling in love with that game, I'm gonna want to see that thing all the way through and try to get a platinum trophy. And I just know, like, during Dark Souls, especially, like, Sen's Fortress, that specific area, if you know what I'm talking about, like, there are so many different little dungeons and little, like, crannies in this little tower, and that you can easily get lost in, and, like, it all kind of wraps around. Like, there's different ways to get to different places, but, like, I feel like if you made the wrong turn at a comma in a paragraph, you fucked yourself, and you kind of lost where you're at.
Yeah, I think that a game like that, this lends itself really well to. But that's also, like we say, up to the developers, right? Like, how long do you think this kind of stuff will be supported? Especially from a third party perspective, but also even from a first party. Like, what did The Last of Us use the touchpad for? Part 2.
Strum the guitar.
Is that it? What about like main menu?
The map? Did the map come up when it was that little open world thing?
Did it have a map?
Yeah,
you mean in that one area? Yeah. Maybe. Right, but like, I can't think of a good use of the touchpad from first-party developers this year. I think Ghost, wasn't that how you like kind of blew the wind and found your direction?
I wish I had the map there.
Sure. So, if first-party drops off, like, what does that even mean for this stuff? And because I really like it. I like the fact that it's taking that away, because viewing this stuff in any other capacity sucks and it's a bad experience. Having to go to YouTube and scrub through something, searching for something, I think, and Sid Schumann points it out in the video as you're watching it, like, you can avoid having to look something up and find spoilers. Because so often now, the way that SEO works, you type in, even if you're as vague as possible or as specific as possible to one specific thing you're looking at, there's already videos with some dudes, the same 6 dudes' faces, stretched out, eyes wide. I can't believe I found this thing. Ganon dies at the end. Like, whatever the heck it is.
What?
And it's not always that, like, I don't know, like, I'm like in a weird spot with spoilers. Like, obviously I don't want someone to tell me something, but like if something gets spoiled, like whatever. But there's been definite times where I've been like, I don't know what the heck to do for this, and I go to look something up and it's like, oh wait, that guy's bad or whatever. Like minor little things like that happen that suck.
Yeah, but
so I don't.
I wanted to see it, but it is what I expected it to be, and like I said earlier, like I wasn't canceling my pre-order of my console if the UI was ugly.
No, well, I think a couple other neat things about this. It seems to be doing what the PlayStation 4 did well, but also incorporating a lot of what the Xbox UI has done really well in the last few years, while also adding a lot more to this. At the very tail end of the video, there was a point where he backs out to the main thing, shows you what it looks like when you first power on the console, or if you return fully to the home menu. And he mentioned that the PlayStation Store is now integrated into the PS5, rather than it being a web page that the console loads, which I hope means that the experience for browsing that store is way better than it is on previous platforms. Because that's always been the downfall, is that thing just struggles to load the content. And now with it being baked into the UI, I think it could potentially work a lot better.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we'll see. We also this week.
Oh,
Sega...
one thing I wanted to point out. One thing I'm pretty sure I heard him when he was Sid say during parties about voice chat that you can initiate it from the mobile app. So you might have an Xbox Live scenario where you can use your phone to just make parties.
I didn't catch that. I remember the part about using voice to text with the DualSense controller if you're trying to type a message. But yeah, I would imagine, because they are making big changes to the way that parties and chat work on the platform. So
yeah, so and there's a couple times. I think we've used Xbox Live through phones for Switch stuff before. So yeah,
crossplay, things like that.
Yeah.
Sega announced 4 free games available, scattered start dates, but they all wrap up. The final day to get them is today, October 19th. These can all be downloaded from Steam. So the 4 projects are Armor of Heroes, developed by Relic Entertainment, a retro-inspired multiplayer tank romp for up to 4 players in versus combat and couch co-op. Endless Zone from Amplitude Studios, the Endless Universe and Fantasy Zone collide in the side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. The Streets of Kamurocho, developed by Sega. Kiryu and Majima from Sega's Yakuza series are raging on the streets of Kamurocho in a new but familiar challenge. It looks like Streets of Rage, but, with Yakuza characters. And then Golden Axed is a build of a never-before-seen glimpse at a canned project called Golden Axe Reborn. That one, the last one in particular, so Golden Axed, that popped up, and following the announcement, artist and programmer Tim Dawson started a thread on Twitter criticizing Sega for the release of the prototype, which he said he helped to create with a small team at a now-closed Sega Studios Australia under severe crunch conditions. He wrote, "Woke up to the surprising news that Sega is releasing the Golden Axe prototype I coded in 2012 under crunch conditions. At least I'm not alone. This appears to be a surprise to everyone I know who actually worked on it. This project was my personal nexus of nightmare hours, inept management, industry realizations, and heroics achieved with a small team under reasonable conditions. So it's an odd feeling to see it surface 8 years later without context, credits, and with a joke title sequence." I read the rest of his thread, and he goes on to talk about some of the horrific conditions and just like poor management, like someone coming in and saying, like, we need a build of this. We have to pitch this internally. We need to see what this looks like. they get everything going, and then someone, after they have a build basically running, says, this isn't good enough, we need to like just across the board, like having to do way too much work without any appreciation. Sega Europe responded after being contacted by Video Games Chronicles, stating Sega Europe reached out to former members of the Golden Axe Reborn dev team to produce this prototype of the game for Steam as part of our 60th anniversary celebrations. We wanted to bring the work of the developers at the time to light and celebrate it as a part of our history, something we didn't get the chance to do first time around. We certainly didn't mean to dredge up painful memories from Mr. Dawson and his former colleagues or appear disrespectful. We've removed the line from the Steam copy that could have been taken as a slur on the development and would like to reassure everyone that it was intended as a comment on the build we had ported to PC, not the quality of the original work. We're hoping lots of fans play the prototype and can appreciate the work he and his colleagues put into developing this prototype. Because the original Steam copy just talked about how, I think it used the word janky specifically, which, again, this was a prototype built in 2 weeks, which can kind of sting a little bit. I want to check all those out for sure, at least. But the Golden Axe one seems... That was a weird... Like, the rest of these were like, okay, that's neat. You had some things commissioned to be developed to celebrate different aspects of Sega's history. That's neat. And then the Golden Axe, like, to actually grab a vertical slice of a game that was never made is an interesting thing. We'll talk later on about the Video Game History Foundation and a new project they have going on, but something like that is really neat, that a piece that probably could have been lost to time. And obviously, like, to celebrate and kind of like dance on the grave of a project that was created under such terrible conditions is not a great thing to do, but it is neat that this thing does get to see the light of day otherwise. Because otherwise it was just a thing that some guy had stories about, right? And now it's something that people actually get to try out and see something that could have been. Well, with that, I think we're going to move into a break. When we get back, we've got some Crash Bandicoot 4 to talk about. We'll talk about that Video Game History Foundation project. And Matt, we're going to travel back in time right after this. Matt, 1 year ago, you had just finished Shenmue, and you were enjoying the Halloween event in Rocket League, while I was chasing opera singers through the sewers in Parasite Eve. We were all hanging on the edge of a tweet from Ikumi Nakamura, shown with Hideki Kamiya, where Kamiya says, Okami is going to be back. So here we are a year later. No Okami. Do you think it's being worked on? Do you think they're doing that? I feel like he later followed up and said, like, I was just joking, but I think it'd be cool if Capcom let us do that. But do you think Capcom let them do that?
Maybe. I'm not going to rule it out.
Do you think that's why Bayonetta 3 has vanished?
No.
Okay.
I think Bayonetta 3 has vanished for similar reasons, like Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, it makes sense. Would you rather see another Okami or a Parasite Eve reboot?
I'd rather see Parasite Eve. That appeals more to me than Okami. I appreciate Okami from afar. It just never looked like my cup of tea.
It's supposed to be a Zelda-style game, right? So I never played it. I was going to buy it. It was on sale a couple months ago, and I was like, I should do that because I was, I think, just coming off of playing Wind Waker, and I wanted another one, obviously, and then I was like, I should do that. And I was looking into something, and then I saw that, like, the opening bit is, like, really long. I wanted something a little bit shorter, and that game seems like it's going to be 40 hours or so, and I was, at the time, didn't want that. Maybe now I don't know. If someone made another game in the style of Zelda, like Okami, but you played as a different animal and not a wolf, what would you want it to be? Which animal would you want to play as in an Okami style, Zelda style game?
Man. Yeah, we need to get away from wolves because we got two of those now. We got Twilight Princess and Okami. So
exactly.
What ant? I don't even know.
Would you play a Simpsons game in the style of Zelda where you had to take Homer on a quest to find the 3 missing pieces of
the three bites of the donut?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I would.
They haven't made a Simpsons game in a while. I guess that tapped out one's probably raking in a bunch of money, and then who cares?
Yeah. Well, the last one they put out was the release of the arcade game on Xbox Live, I feel like, right?
Yeah. They did that because prior to that they had the Simpsons game in like 2007. But yeah.
People keep asking for that hit and run reboot.
Now that I could do with. As we're getting into these like early 2000s, let's revive some stuff. That sounds like it's a licensing nightmare because I think it would have been EA who did that at the time, and then now Disney. But
they have the partnership with EA already. It's not. It's a little shaky at the moment, but you know some Star Wars games are starting to look better.
Sure.
Squadrons is doing all right. I think it's gotten good buzz. I haven't played it, but
does your understanding of who Shenmue is look any better than it did a year ago?
No. And I played through I played through 2/3 of Shenmue 2.
That's still nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to come back to that at some point. I just don't know when. Don't know when it makes sense.
It's getting close. You're going to start to hit that wall where, you know, like, I got some time. Let me wrap up Shenmue 2. Before you know it, you'll be knee-deep into 3. And
still asking what a Shenmue is?
Yeah. I think I'm close. Like, now that I've got Xenoblade behind me, I'm starting to look at some other things. I think I might go back to Yakuza and finish up, because I never finished Kiwami. It was one of those ones where I hit a chapter that, like, there was a goal I had to do to go find somebody for something, and everywhere I went, it just wasn't working. So I was getting frustrated and just walked away from it. But I think, let me go back, let me knock that out, because I really want to play some, because it's good, but I think unlike Mafia, I think Yakuza Kiwami is still a little rigid when compared to something that's designed in a more modern sense. So I really want to see like Yakuza 0 or 6 maybe. And then obviously 7's coming out in a couple weeks, so. But that's a whole different.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame there.
Yeah. So I did jump into Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, now finishing Xenoblade as the threat happened. That Monster Hunter Rise trailer really got me stoked about Monster Hunter, reminded me that I played a bunch of World earlier this year, and Generations Ultimate was on Switch, and was on sale when I bought it for like $16, which is a steal. So here I am, 10 hours in. I started this Thursday because I think I hit the point with Xenoblade where I was like, I'm done with this on maybe Monday or Tuesday. And then I like took a couple of days, just didn't play anything. And then Thursday after work, jumped in to Monster Hunter and just sunk a bunch of time into it. Thursday and some more Friday. So I started off, did all of the tutorials because I knew enough from World that I probably could have just jumped in and started doing the quests, but the games are different enough. And there were some things in this that, having done the tutorials, I feel like I learned better than I did in World, that if I had skipped the tutorials, I might have been lost on. So I ran through all of those and there's tutorials for each weapon that you use or can equip. So I did the one for the weapon I've been using, which in this game I'm using Sword and Shield right now. I don't know why, but I am. I think in World I used a lot more longsword stuff, but longsword is very much like hit them and get away. Like make your hit, move away, reposition and whatever, where Sword and Shield is a lot of get in, do a bunch of slashes, and then try and like roll around and get away in that regard. So I did that, and I feel pretty comfortable with the weapon of choice. And here, once you kind of do the tutorials that teach you the basics of gathering, hunting, resource finding, capturing a monster, and why you would capture a monster versus killing them in different scenarios. I did those and then did all of the 1-star quests, and now I'm in 2-star stuff. And the 1-stars go from... it's a lot of resource gathering. So it's like teaching you how to gather, which is really just like find the hot spots in each part of the map and stand over it and hold A to collect the resources. But it's also showing you that like you do get a variety of resources from different pools. So there might be a plant that you find, and that plant's going to give you one of a handful of things if you go to gather from it. And then it then shows you why you should use or how to use those resources for crafting other items. So there is a list. There's 23 pages of things you can craft in the game. And it's everything from potions or rations that can help increase your health or your stamina or heal you, to fishing bait, to bullets that you can use, or oil that you can put on your sword or your weapon. To like, there's just all of these different things, and it's all in the for the sake of buffing you or debuffing your enemy, basically. It's always going to be those types of things, but they do kind of drastically change how you approach each stage, each level, and each character. And that first bit, you might feel like going through the same map area becomes tiresome, but there's enough of a difference in the layout of each section of the map each time you play that there's always something a little different to find, and there's different, each time you're going in, it's with a different reason. So like one quest might be go in and find so many unique mushrooms. You go in and you do that. But it's like mushrooms aren't always going to spawn in that corner. So you're checking different spots of the map. And what ended up happening by the end of the 1-star quests, I know that whole Jurassic Frontier is the first world you go to. I know that whole map like so well. So not that I'm playing with other people, but if I were and someone said, oh, we got to go to 8 because I know exactly like what's the path to get to 8. There's like 1, 2, I think it's 1 through 11 different like spots on the map. So I know exactly which quadrant and which path to take to get to each one. But like it just now I feel like I have an intimate relationship or intimate knowledge of that land. And now that I've moved into the second one, it's like a brand new, whole new world. And it's cool. Like when you load into the second one for the first time, you get this nice cinematic that pops up. The first time you encounter a new monster, like a one of the big monsters that you actually like have to take down and hunt, they do it on another sweeping cinematic that kind of shows you them for the first time. So there's a celebration of the world and the characters within. And I think for me, there's an eagerness in this game to see like, okay, I've got the sword and shield, but what's the coolest looking sword and shield I can have? What's the coolest looking headpiece I can have? And while I want to see all that stuff, I'm also learning to be more patient and slowly just increase my armor. Like I'm slowly upgrading that stuff and getting the materials to do that. And I found a great companion app that I don't remember the name of. I think it's Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate Database is what it's called. Yes, that's exactly it. It's a free to download app on iOS. I think there's an Android version. And it literally has just there's a quests button, and then it has all the quests from training through 10-star. You click on whatever it is, and then it shows you exactly what the thing, like, it's just a full, like, mobile resource, which is super helpful because the one downside to this is while it's good at tutorializing things and showing you things, there's a lot that it's not good at. So it tells you, or not good at telling you. So it says like, hey, you have to go kill 10 of these specific monsters. I'm wandering around like, is this the one? And like, until I kill a couple of different types of monsters in a world, I don't know that I did it right. And like, I'm checking, I kind of have to like wipe out an area, because if you start attacking one, then they all come at you. So I wipe out an area, then I check my quest completion, and I'm like, okay, still 0 out of 10. Wasn't that... So there's stuff like that where it's like, I wish there were a picture side by side that shows you this is what the monster looks like. Then I know, okay, let me find that thing in the map and I can go find it. So it's a much slower and intentional game than I'm used to playing. And in ways, the thing I had heard about this one prior to grabbing it is that World was the first one that kind of flatlined everything and made sure that it had a good entry-level approach for new players, where Generations Ultimate was like the fan service game to pay tribute to the whole series since its beginnings in 2004, where everything about Generations Ultimate, it was kind of like think about Smash Brothers Ultimate, where it's just everybody's here. Like that was this. Like every monster that was ever in Monster Hunter, they put in this game. So it's like an all-stars kind of thing. So you always have those. The most number of weapons, like everything is here. It's like this was the kind of send-off as the final, like, I can't think of an example, but like of another game. But you know when a game will like put everything all together and then say, all right, we're going in a new direction. Like this is kind of like whatever the last Mortal Kombat was before the reboot in 2011, right? Like it's kind of like that. Like everything's here, and then they did World, and now Rise is happening, which kind of pulls in some from World, but Rise was developed in tandem with World. So Rise actually, it's probably pulling more from Generations Ultimate than World. But yeah, I heard this one was a lot more obtuse, and I'm seeing that in some ways, but in other ways, I feel like if you're someone on the outside like I was, wondering, is this game right for me? There's so many people that are way into this game that tell you how overwhelming it is and you're not going to understand it and it's confusing and you might as well. It's not, dude. Like, just play the game. And if you're someone who's like, I've always wanted to play Monster Hunter and I'm not sure, I think that Generations Ultimate has been way better than World because it's on Switch. And I think that's the key difference, what's keeping me attracted to this one. And that's not to say, like, I put 20, 30 hours into World, but I was on Xbox. So it was like I had to sit down at the TV and play there. Where this, being on Switch, it's the first example in a long time with Switch that I find myself actively switching between TV and handheld and welcoming it, right? Because some of the things I want on the big screen so I can really see how the fight's going to play out. And others, like if I'm just resource gathering or spending a couple hours doing missions where I'm just farming for whatever, like I'm just going to put Dragon Ball on the TV and then play this in my hands, you know, and it works in that way. Dragon
Ball, Monster Hunter, wow. That's quite the combo you got there.
It's a good combo, or whatever, right? You know what I mean? Like you just slap something on the TV and play it, run a couple missions.
Have you pre-ordered your movie ticket for the Monster Hunter movie yet?
Oh my gosh, I'm lying. No interest in that one. I saw the trailer drop this week, but I just...
I don't think I watched. I think I keep seeing like the little teasers, little snippet. But yeah, I have no interest.
I saw a screenshot of what's her face?
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, I saw a screenshot of her holding a big sword.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, that's cool.
That's Monster Hunter. From what I know, big swords and Rathalos.
Yeah, I've not seen Rathalos in this one yet. Of the big monsters, I've only seen two. About 10 hours in, if that gives you any indication. I think there's like 50 different monsters, so
all right.
I don't know, but this is definitely a big game, but I'm super happy to kind of finally be in it, because I bought it a month ago, really excited about it, but I bought it after I just bought Xenoblade, and I knew if I jumped into this, I would never finish Xenoblade, so now that I've put that behind me, I'm in, and I can focus on it.
Yeah, now that you didn't finish Xenoblade, time to move on.
Yeah, exactly. Where do you fall on Monster Hunter?
I don't think it's for me. I know you keep saying like you were kind of that way, but you got into World and you ended up really liking it, and maybe that was the thing. But it's going to be very, very hard to get me to sit down with that game, probably to the point where I understand it and can actually like have a decent time with it, then not like go through the tutorials and stuff like that. Not saying that you can't get some fun out of the tutorial stuff, but you know, where you're kind of like, all right,
no, they were a slog.
Yeah,
like, it took me about an hour and a half to get through the basic tutorials, and they're very slow because World does do some things. Like World just gives you a map. This, when you start a quest, you need to go to the treasure box and pick up the map. Otherwise, you don't have a map. And the map's always in the top right corner of the screen once you pick it up, but you need to physically pick it up and put it in your inventory for that to show up. And like, you have to do that every time. And with the tutorial missions, it's never like, hey, take an hour and just go wander. It's like, hey, go get 3 of these things. And then you get that, you have to bring them back and whatever, and then the quest ends, and you have to wait for it to end, and then fast travel back, and then start the next quest that takes you back to the same area to do... It's a grind for 90 minutes or so, but you do get a good, like, base. And now I feel like I'm getting there, and of course, this seems like one of those games where as it opens up, you learn more and more and more.
Yeah, I mean, never say never, but I just don't see me getting to it.
I only say because I think the boss fight stuff of this is what you would appreciate from a Dark Souls Bloodborne perspective. Like the fact that like I feel myself learning enemy attack patterns and learning the different moves of the monsters. And I haven't seen one in here yet that I recognize from World, but I know that when I do, I'm already going to know the tells, right? Because they're so unique to each of them that I'll be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I got to cut that one's tail off so he can stop whatever. Like, you know, there was the one I did fight last night, I was surprised I learned, like, I hit him enough and his horns fell off. And I was like, ooh, okay, well, he can't ram me anymore. You know what I mean? Like, there's stuff like that that's neat about it.
Go try to platinum Dark Souls and get some of those weapons. You can cut some tails off there.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, more on that as it develops and I see how I take to that. I hope I stick with it. I've wanted to be able to stick with one through to the end, and I think the portability of this one's going to help a whole bunch. And then again, it has me more excited for Rise because this one's great, but this was a 3DS game originally, so it's ported to Switch, and it's not the best looking, but it still plays really well, and I still think it looks good knowing its history, but knowing that Rise already looks like something... you know, it's running on the RE engine. Like that part has me super stoked for March.
Yeah.
Speaking of super stoked, you have jumped into Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time.
Yeah.
After a long hiatus in the Crash Bandicoot series.
Yeah, but not including the Insane trilogy, definitely. It's Crash Bandicoot. Like I if you hate Crash Bandicoot or you love Crash Bandicoot, I don't think this game's gonna like change your mind on any of that. It's really weird to jump into something like this, even after the Insane trilogy, just wrapping your head around like the arcadiness of it, the precision in your jumping. There's just something to the formula like that. I don't know. It was so weird. Like, I found myself with the left analog stick for the first 5 minutes, and I wasn't hitting jumps, and I went back to the D-pad, and like I started hitting jumps. I feel like again, or like I just got my head wrapped around like the physics of Crash again, and you know, maneuvering through levels. But yeah, no, it is definitely a typical Crash Bandicoot game. Yeah, and like I've played through the first world, so like there's a little tutorial level. I think like Insane Island is where you start, and then you go to the next one where one of like it's Engine or Dr. Engine or whatever. One of those bosses is in like a cyber or what? No, it was like a desert spot. I think. I don't know. I forget now. I don't. If I'm either in like the desert spot now, like old cowboy western town, or that was the first world. I forget now. But I'll play through all that, and I got through like the boss fight with him. Yeah, but I feel like this game's still revealing its hand to me. I haven't gotten to a lot of the new gameplay stuff that they've been talking about. I have not played as anyone besides Crash or Coco, because you can switch between them at free will. But yeah, like it's a Crash game. The story, like it picks up after 3. Nefarious and Dr. Cortex and Uka Uka are trapped away somewhere. Uka Uka does end up breaking like a little like multiverse portal thing, which I don't know if he's dead or passed out, but like they leave him because I guess he used all his energy to open up that time portal, and then they decide they have some control over the multiverse and can conquer all these realms. And of course, Uka Uka used his power, so Aku Aku felt like a disturbance, kind of in the Force, if I could use a Star Wars term, and has warned Crash. And Crash goes and investigate on Insane Island, and he stumbles upon Lani Loli, which is a multiverse mask, much in the same vein as an Aku Aku or Uka Uka. But he should not be awake unless there's a disturbance in the multiverse space-time continuum thing. So with him waking up, he, like Lani Loli I'm talking about, he is very self-aware that there's something wrong going on. So now he is partnering with Aku Aku, Crash, and Coco to try and save and stop the Nefarious Trophy and Dr. Neo Cortex. And maybe Uka Uka if he wakes up or is not dead. So yeah.
So Cortex is still the bad guy?
It seems like it.
Because they talked that you play as him in this game, right?
Well, I think that's where the multiverse stuff's going to... I think you're going to get like a different version. I think you're going to get like all these different... like it's going to get weird like Injustice kind of things and DC multiverse types of things going on. So
got it.
I think that's how... what's her face? Not Coco. Can't remember her name. Oh, shit. The chick. Exactly. I can't think of her, but I think that's how she comes back around in this as like an alternate version of herself too that has like that gun for her gameplay or whatever. So yeah, it's gonna be. I'm curious to see how how all the others end up. What was it? Sorry,
Tawna.
That's right. I'm curious to see how the others play, but Crash itself has gotten a couple new mechanics. There's a new grind mechanic, think very much Ratchet and Clank grinding sections of those levels.
Yeah, okay.
It's like that, but there's you can dip under, you can swing, and the swinging I don't think is so much important for dodging obstacles as for getting the crates, because this game very much loves kill all the crates, get all the fruit, timing,
hidden crystals.
Yeah, the hidden gem, all that stuff. So. That's there. They've done the realm switching thing as well. There's going to be sections where you kind of pair up with Lani Loli, where you hit R2 and platforms and walls appear and disappear. You can see them when they're not there, of course, but you can't land on them. Right. So there's going to be things with that and crates that already have lent to some interesting platforming parts. It's nothing. I feel like Guacamelee did that, and they got very tricky in that as well. So it's a mechanic we've seen in platformers recently, but Crash is taking its own little...
New to Crash, yeah.
Yeah, we're putting the Crash flavor on that now. So,
how about rideables? Do they have... because I know...
I haven't had any rideables yet. Not yet. I did get stuck in a steel ball running away from someone, but that wasn't like a car or anything like that. It was just, I think, a different coat of paint with you running into... the camera is one of those runaway sequences. So
okay, I just remember the polar bear in I think 2 and
the bike in 3. The jet ski sections in 3 as well. But right away, in the first 2 levels of the game, they showed you all the typical Crash angles: running forward, side the platforming sideways, running towards the camera, running away from stuff. They hit almost everything just to remind you this is Crash Bandicoot, and we're sticking to its roots. So it was really cool to see that. Right away, the game asked a question. I love this because I think it's going to welcome newcomers a lot. There's a modern and a classic system for lives and checkpoints and continues. The modern system abandons the lives and just lets you pick up from the last checkpoint no matter what. And then you can go switch to Classic, which lets you have your lives, you collect your fruit, you get the extra lives from the crates and all that stuff. They'll let you stockpile, and of course when you die, and you lose a life. I went to Classic, but I can already see the difficulty of this game getting there. And the difficulty, it's ramping up. It's not hard to get through the level. Where the difficulty is trying to get that last or second to last crate that's up in the corner that requires precise platforming, and if you die, get into it, of course that's a life gone. So the difficulty for me right now is trying to get all the crates. I haven't gotten a level where I've gotten every single gem yet. I've come close, but not everyone. And the gems in this game, there's 6 per level, at least so far, 6 per level. And if you get all 6, you unlock alternate costume for Crash or Coco to use in at your leisure. You get the gems. There's 3 for different tiers, the amount of fruit you get. There's 1 for getting all the crates. There's 1 for dying less than 3 times in a level. And then the 6th one is the hidden gem that you kind of refer to. It's somewhere along the level. Of course, there's the bonus stages. I think those are so cleverly designed, where they are so challenging or very challenging to try and get every single crate. It makes you master your platforming and all your jumping mechanics to a T at times. The nice thing about those, just like the old games, if you die in them, you don't lose a life. You just get put right outside the thing, and you can just go back into it and keep trying until you kind of perfect it. But yeah, and then I haven't gotten to any of the remixed levels, the retro. Oh, shit, what are they called?
Inverted levels?
The inverted levels. I haven't gotten to anything like that yet. I did get one of the lost footage tapes that sees the origin of how Coco and Crash went through Neo Cortex's trials to break out or whatever. And one of the, it was very much a jump on all the crates to the end. There was hardly any platforms, and if there was a checkpoint there. So it's definitely challenge levels for that as well. And I think you can earn extra lives off of them and fruit and a gem or something like that. There is some kind of reward that I just don't remember off the top of my head. I did get something for doing it all the way through with all the crates. But yeah,
how much does it tie into the Skylanders lore?
I don't know, actually. I never played Skylanders. I want to. It seems I would get more use out of a Skylander than a me, but or not an amiibo.
That's all.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it has to. Activision had to stop making money off it. Remember, Activision made it, so if anyone's going to kill it,
yeah, that's true.
All those devs are making maps for Modern Warfare now.
It's a very good point. But overall, you feel like it's a worthy successor so far. Obviously, it's.
Yeah, so far it's a new Crash game. It has a nice coat of paint on it. I know the Insane trilogy did a nice job of putting a nice coat of paint on it, but
and it looks about the same. Or,
yeah,
well, I'm sure it probably looks better, but
yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more detail to it. Sometimes though, there's so much detail on the screen, I miss an obstacle. I feel like sometimes it could be
there's something about back then you kind of knew very clearly what was a thing you're supposed to interact with and something in the background, where now I'm sure it probably blends.
I was jumping on the platform, and all of a sudden there was this little flamethrower thing on the platform that went off, and I was on a timer. I was like, fuck, where'd that come from? So
yeah,
there's something to that. I mean, once you see it and you kind of expect it in that area, you start looking for it a little bit more. So I guess at some point it's also on you for not being careful, being very observant. But I've had a little bit harder time finding some of those background things that are on timers along that line. But yeah, no, it's very this Crash, one hit dies unless you have an Aku wrapped around you to give you that extra hit. Is
that because you're on classic mode, or would normal?
I think it's going to be a normal, but I just think the modern is more forgiving. There's no lives, so you don't have to worry about resetting yourself or anything or going back to old levels to grind out lives if you're low on lives or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's just more forgiving in that sense. But now they're sticking to their guns. It is the core Crash experience that if you grew up with it or were new when the Insane trilogy came around, it is more of that. Oh, and they brought back the overworld from the first game. So it's more like that, where you're traveling station to station, much like a Super Mario 3 or World.
That's cool. Yeah, that I don't know. I remember trying to play through the Insane trilogy and kind of feeling like, I played so much of these when I was a kid. I didn't like the draw to go through them again. Just wasn't there. It's the same thing. Like I just fired up Ocarina of Time 3D on my 2DS, and I'm like in the Deku tree because I really want to be in a Zelda game right now. You know what I mean? But like I'm doing that, and I'm like, I've done this. You know, like do I need to do this again?
No,
but 4, that would be the exciting. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, that's that's exciting. Like I don't know, like. You know, granted, it's been so long since I played 1 or 2, and even 3 to an extent. Where like 3, once you got into a level, you kind of remember it, but you don't remember all the details. It's been that long. But like 1 or 2, I kind of don't remember. But I feel like if I played enough of it, I would remember some of the levels that I did manage to get to. But this is, I know it's going to be a brand new thing every time I go into this world. Sure. And like the first boss fight, I thought like it's very much a Crash Bandicoot one, but it was I enjoyed it. It was not like a very tedious one. I thought it was very unique. The challenge, there was a good level of challenge as well as like being fair. I didn't die in it, but like there was a couple times like, oh shit, watch out.
Was it the jump on thing 3 times kind of boss fight? Like,
kind of. This one, like you were kind of in defense mode on these platforms. They were shooting things like up, like you had to crouch, you had to jump, and then like you had to spin and kill something that would come at you, and it would hit like this jukebox. You hit the jukebox thing 3 times, then you can platform in a certain amount of time to hit them, and you had to do that 4 times. So like rinse and repeat. It's that like do the thing 3 times, go.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's one of those things where like each time you do it, it shakes up the level a little bit. It gets a little bit harder.
Also building a good foundation of your skill set that's going to carry you forward for the rest of the game.
Exactly.
And likely into the other characters. So that's cool.
Yep.
I dig it. I'm curious to see how that one keeps going for you.
Yeah, it's like I only played the one world, but that's just because of timing, and I had to eat at some point last night. So I'm ready to keep going with that.
Well, that is probably helped. I would say that game likely, or the originals being remade, probably it was really helpful for those developers to have access to some of the original source material to make those games, which works perfectly into our next news story, our final news story for the week. The Video Game History Foundation has announced the Video Game Source Project, where work is beginning to help maintain and conserve video game source material. What is source material, you ask? Raw materials used in production like source code, art, documentation, and records of correspondence like emails, letters, faxes. The quote here directly from the article is, in the hands of an historian, a properly archived source repository is the next best thing to time travel. The beginnings of this project are to establish the standards for how to collect and archive said source data. The Video Game History Foundation has already used source to bring games to life that otherwise could have been lost to time. So 3 examples that the Video Game History Foundation has already done were Aladdin. So remember that Disney collection of Aladdin and Lion King? They were able to get source material for Aladdin. There's a really rad... We've talked about it back when it happened, but there's a really rad thing at gamehistory.org. If you go there, you can read the Aladdin stuff. But they have like the original hand-drawn animations for that they used to create that. And when remastering it in that collection, they were able to go back to the source material to make sure that it was accurate to the original design. Days of Thunder was a game that was pieced together by floppy disks that I think it was floppies that one of the developers had in his basement, just sitting like rotting away, that almost like any amount of time more could have like eroded them and done. That's it. That game would have been gone forever. And Simcity for NES was a prototype that got lost or whatever, but the Video Game History Foundation worked through its source to help dump it and get it to a playable state. One of the first, not necessarily projects, but something coming out of this, Video Game History Foundation announced that Ron Gilbert, the creator of The Secret of Monkey Island, will be celebrating the game's 30th anniversary on October 30th with an event looking through its source material to kind of go through what source material looks like, what it is, and how to help archive it. This whole thing is super rad. So this is like building on what the Foundation's already been doing, but making sure the conversation is then carrying to the rest of the industry, which I think is the important part. We talked, I know I brought it up last year, but there was a game developers conference presentation by, he's a preservationist for EA, and it stood out to me. He talked all about what EA is doing to preserve video games and how much work it takes for that. And he talked about how it's not just as simple as right click, save as, here's a zip file of everything we did for this project. It's also like, hey, what were they working on? Like when people were building games for the PS3, what did the dev kits look like? What did the computers look like? What was the software they were using to build the assets to put into the dev kits? Like all of that stuff. It's more than just, yo, here's some high-res images that we had to compress when we put them on a disk and shipped it. It's like, no, here's the software we used to create those high-res images. Because now in the modern day, there's, a handful of professional tools suites that a lot of developers are going to use. But especially as we go back further in time, you have so much stuff that was proprietary, that was built straight, like tools developed specifically for a project and then burned and thrown away forever. So there's so much more that goes into archiving things than just right-click save as. And it's something that I hope that after seeing that and seeing that EA was starting to do it, I hoped that his conversation was getting out there and pushing other big publishers and developers to do this stuff. Because there's a lot, right? Like one, obviously there's the fact that things have already been and will be lost to time, which sucks. But there's also stuff that like there are like that Golden Axe project we talked about, like that. And we still don't know like every little piece of that. It seems like it was a 2-week project that whatever, but like there's projects that lasted far longer, or even that one that could have been lost forever. And you never know who was behind them, right? Like now we have things like social media where someone who worked on something can get out there and be a little more vocal about a project they worked on or something like that. But it's not always the case. In the 80s, we had a lot of those situations where companies were intentionally hiding credits to its internal team because they didn't want their team to get poached. We saw that a lot, I think, with Konami and others. Stuff like that like, it took, I think, almost 30 years to figure out who made Castlevania, which is bizarre for how big of a game and a franchise that is. Like
Johnny Dracula, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the thing. Like they made little jokes in the credits where they made like, it wasn't Bela Lugosi. They did like a
pun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, that's not who made the game.
That's what you think.
It's tough. Yeah, right. Little do I know. So I think that helps to give credit to the people behind these projects. But I think also, I don't want this stuff to come out because it got leaked. Like that's another side. Like the company should be able to control what goes out. I think that's important too, because there is so much of this stuff that's like trade secret that they don't want to let competition get in on whatever. And a company like Nintendo is a famous example of Nintendo's ideas are used. They're thought of and then kind of like buried until they come back out. But there's never something where it's like, yeah, we had this idea, here it is. It's like, no, we had this idea in 1987 and it's just showing up now for the first time in Super Mario Odyssey. Like stuff like that is real to a company like Nintendo, but it's so rare that we get a peek behind the curtain at what a company like that is doing. So hopefully this whole project ends up creating nice curation of things and starts to set kind of a standard for how video game companies archive. And the talk the EA guy did talked about how every company should have an archivist or probably multiple, in that regard. So gamehistory.org if you want to read more or watch more or anything more. October 30th is that Ron Gilbert event, which seems cool, especially in a year where GDC didn't happen in a traditional format. Something like that's going to be neat to peek at.
Well, you still have Mark Cerny, so.
That was the tiniest little, yeah. So if a company, Matt, if we move forward here, let's say that the work of the Game History Foundation gets companies to archive its source material, what's the video game for you that you want to see everything, the full breakdown that you would just pour through a binder of source material for?
I don't. I thought about this question for a bit, and I don't have the best answer. Like, one, I wouldn't know what to do with it, but I guess if I had the ability to do anything, like, I don't know. I feel like Metal Gear Solid, like the first one, is such a weird thing because it launched storytelling in kind of in that. In the PlayStation 1 era, but like in general as well, like, it was this full-fledged cinematic story. I would love to see like the script and like how they put the dialogue, how they were able to manipulate cutscenes, because like you didn't see a lot of that at a as much as Kojima used it. And Kojima's so weird. He puts in the weirdest shit as well, and like of course having full access to that score like before it was brought down to what it had to be for the PlayStation 1. Like I know you can find that score anywhere, but yeah, I feel like there's a lot you could do with that. I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, that was like the first game that just jumped into my head.
Yeah, because I think that's one too where like he had been pretty open throughout the years about its development and things, and enough about it, but like there's some of the weird stuff, like what got cut, what were the conversations like what were there correspondence that had them get to a certain decision to add a certain character or a certain story beat, like, you know what I mean? Like that's the stuff that's really wild. It's funny you mentioned a Konami game because Symphony of the Night, as soon as I wrote this question, I was like, oh, I need that. Like, and I feel like we already know a good bit of that. Like Koji Igarashi through the years talked a lot about that game's development, but if you gave me a binder or just like a 12 art book sized collection of stuff just to pour through, like all of the original art, dude, I would melt. That would be the coolest thing in the world, just to see through and through the whole of a project. That's so rad.
You reminded me when you said about cut bosses, but like Bloodborne, I know there's data miners right now that still are finding stuff, but like what like we know what some of those monsters look like, and what some of the cut stuff would look like. Like what was it? What else was there?
Yeah, I think another, like, a modern example, I think Bloodborne would be another fascinating one just to see the whole source for. There's got to be other ones, too, that I'm not thinking of, like...
Would love to see the source code for, like, NHL, like, 18, so that way I know, like, what to expect and uncover all the things up until, like, 26, probably.
And that's the thing, like, I wonder how much of that... I mean, with sports games, that would be an interesting one to see the source stuff for, like all the source material, like because you think about how they probably have to go back and forth with contracts and licensing and a lot. Like there's all of that stuff that's probably equally as fascinating. Yeah, and I wonder how much of that has changed between like the mid '90s and today, like what they have to do to chase down those things and get the right agreements, and that would be neat. Or to see like. People's, I'm sure somewhere there's like handmade drawings of all the logos they had to scan in or something to render. All that stuff's wild.
Yeah,
like this stuff's super cool and important. I don't know. I always love that. Like, if we could get like just an ongoing, perpetual Iwata asks, where we could learn more about I don't know. That stuff's always been the best. So go check that out if it interests you. And go check us out on thefreecheese.com or on your favorite podcast service every Monday. We've got a new episode. We've got some stuff coming up, Matt. nothing to tip the hand here, but we're talking behind the scenes about some Game of the Year and Game of the Generation. Who could even think of such a thing? But listeners, stay tuned for that stuff in the coming weeks, months, as we wrap up 2020. If you want, you can follow us on Twitter. The Free Cheese is at Some Free Cheese. The Matt is at MattyIce131. Podcast at thefreecheese.com is an email address where you can send emails and get your name on the show. Or just tell us about how we can improve our sex lives with one simple pill. Got one of those this week.
Speaking about good pills, what are you playing?
Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is definitely... I'm going to keep going with that. I like having that portability. And now that Xenoblade's behind me, I can slip back into 13 Sentinels because that fell to the back burner for a little bit.
Gotcha.
And then, I don't know. I'm screwing around with the 2DS a little bit, so maybe some more Ocarina. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not sure. How about you?
Crash is going to be a big part of it. But you almost got through a whole episode, but The Haunting of Verdansk starts Tuesday.
Got
Modern
ghosts?
Warfare. We don't know what exactly is in there, but of course there's a bunch of different things you can buy. They're bringing licensed things for you to buy. Like there's going to be a Saw pack, a Texas Chainsaw Massacre pack, and like
that's cool.
in your operator, like your skin's going to be like Leatherface or like the little doll thing. I forget the name of Saw, but like. Yeah, there's going to be like weapon blueprints that have like some of that stuff designed around it. So curious. Someone did data mine a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be like part of the regular battle royale, but they think like some scares might happen throughout battle royale, or it might be some special modes that incorporate some zombies and stuff. So we'll see. Yeah, right now you can go to like there's an Easter egg. There's some kind of I forget. I think it's near stadium. There's some kind of like camping ground like right near stadium that's like not marked on the map, but it's like a landmark you can call out. If you go there, I think if you sit there long enough, you can hear like children talking.
Sick.
So
All right.
there's some stuff they might be doing with it. Hopefully, and that kicks off Tuesday. So I'm excited to see. Hopefully that's a little boost to life to that game because it was starting to get a little like. Yeah, all right. We're doing the same thing here. Oh, you broke this again? All right, great. I
hope it's scarier than the boring tales of Bly Manor. I'll say that much. Yeah.
So I think Modern Warfare. Still cracking ahead at Rocket League as well. There's no Halloween event, at least not yet. But going through that Rocket Pass. I'm flying through that Rocket Pass, dude. Flying like you flew through the air when we record it.
That's all you can do in that game. It's all you're supposed to do in that game. Well, cool. That is it for us. Thank you. What did I do? Thank you, Matt, for matting. Thank you, listener, for listening. And we'll be back next week with 373. Now that there's a palindrome. Bye.